Hey guys, and welcome back to another Conan Exiles video. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to build in the Anglo-Saxon style, a type of architecture found across medieval England. Anglo-Saxon is one of the many forms that medieval architecture takes. It's a style brimming with history, and as an Englishman myself, I can attest firsthand to the grandeur of this style. They're often not the most extravagant buildings, but they do emanate a sense of historical importance. The issue is that Anglo-Saxon architecture is pretty hard to pin down. Very little of it survived in its true form, often being built upon, expanded, adjusted or destroyed, especially after the Norman conquest in 1066. However, we'll do our best to nail down a specific style to replicate in-game. Ecclesiastical Anglo-Saxon architecture is typically seen in their churches and has a few core tenets that dictate its style, so let's take a look at those. They are typically built from stone. Timber and wood are seen in some surviving examples, but not many. The main body of the churches were usually very tall, taller than you'd expect for a single-storey structure. Some windows, usually small and definitely without glass. Larger windows are usually additions from later periods. They usually had a fairly simple design. Anglo-Saxon churches sometimes included a flat-topped tower, but not always. The structure was simple and was based around a basilica, an oblong building beginning with the nave, the main corridor of the church, and ending in either a chancel arch or an apse, a semicircular dome. Simple roofing, often constructed from shingles or some form of medieval tile. Tall archways, especially the aforementioned chancel archways on the interior. Finally, long and short stonework on the corners to add extra decoration as a wall trim. So, now that we know what makes up the ecclesiastical Anglo-Saxon style, let's see if we can emulate it in Conan Exiles. Recreating this style without mods can be a touch difficult, as given that this style is very simple on paper, it is sometimes difficult to get the correct feeling of the build. However, there are a few good options at hand with either Numidian or Arena. I chose to use a mix of Numidian and Arena, as Arena doesn't have the sloping sides you'd need to properly capture the feeling of the Anglo-Saxon style, though other materials could be used in place of the missing Arena sloping sides. If you wish to include timber-framed pieces, you can also use Yamatai, as they do work fairly well. I always find that these Anglo-Saxon designs are often a lot more reserved than they seem. Even the more eye-catching designs are, at the core, very simple. Examples like Bradford-upon-Avon, Earls Barton and the Church of St Mary have a very simple core concept, usually based almost entirely around the large basilica, sometimes with smaller buildings extending out from the core shape. Overall, the options in the base game aren't perfect, but they are good enough to emulate the Anglo-Saxon style. Numidian and Arena are both good choices, and I do believe that stone brick and maybe even to a degree sandstone could work too. Without mods, you can get reasonably close, but unfortunately you do miss out on a lot of the Anglo-Saxon detailing like long and short stonework. For the folk over on PC, there are some mods you can use to help elevate this style. I personally found that AG architecture and Dude's delightful decorations are a solid combination, though I did struggle to find anything lighter than the granite set in AG architecture that would work, so other mods could work too if you do have any in mind that I've missed. AG architecture definitely does lean a bit more towards the Gothic side, which is something you do see in Anglo-Saxon structures, but usually those are the elements that have been heavily adapted and changed from the original. The stone is rough yet clean and works perfectly well for this style. There is enough in the material set as well to include archways and smaller architectural details that fit quite nicely within the Anglo-Saxon repertoire. Dude's Delightful Decorations is a great mod I've mentioned before, however it does include wall trims which work perfectly for the long and short stonework that is so common amongst Anglo-Saxon architecture. The combination of these two mods, along with some good decoration mods, should result in a pretty solid Anglo-Saxon design. It's still not perfect, but the issues are minor compared to the issues that arise when you use base game materials, as these materials are just a bit more fitting for the Anglo-Saxon style. Also, as a bonus, Dude's Delightful Decorations does include a small amount of wooden timber-framed pieces, which work perfectly well if you do want to include timber on your build, and aesthetically are a much better solution than Yamatai. Overall, there are some solid modded options that, whilst not necessarily created with the intention of being used in the Anglo-Saxon style, do end up covering a lot of the bases necessary to classify a build as Anglo-Saxon. To recap, Ecclesiastical Anglo-Saxon architecture is characterised by tall yet reserved buildings, often quite simple, with a very no-frills rustic approach that really evokes a proper medieval aura. Unlike Byzantine with its domes or classical with its columns, there's nothing you can specifically point at to say as a specific and instantly recognisable characteristic of the build, but I do think that Anglo-Saxon is very much about the feeling as much as it is what actually goes into the build. It's an incredibly interesting style, though unfortunately the many examples of Saxon structures that were adjusted and modified by future cultures, alongside the many buildings that fell to ruin, do really make nailing down a solid archetype difficult. I do feel that researching this video did end up falling victim to that uncertainty to a degree, but hopefully you now know a bit more about Anglo-Saxon architecture and how to recreate it in Conan Exiles. If you enjoyed that video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. The links to my Twitter, Discord, Patreon and various sponsored discounts are also available in the description below. As always, if you have suggestions for future content you'd like to see, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to become a member of the Coffee Cult by joining our Discord, and if you'd like to support the channel further, become an esteemed Coffee Cultist by joining us over on Patreon. As a patron, you'll get sneak peeks of new videos before they're uploaded, full-size blueprints, wallpapers in both 1080p and 4K resolutions, Discord roles and more. On that note, a massive thanks to all of our esteemed Coffee Cultists on screen now for continuing to support the channel. Again, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.